Hello everyone, today we will have two interesting stories. Before we get to that, I want to ask you to subscribe, like, and be sure to write comments in order to participate in the development of the community. Write how to improve my community, current topics in the stories you are interested in, and much more. I read and listen to all the comments. People write me stories by mail from different countries. There are problems with translation. I apologize for this. I will work on it and try to fix these errors. I want to thank everyone for their support and the people who wrote to me by mail, broadcast news stories. New videos on my channel are published every 2 days at 7 p.m. Don't forget to put a bell in order not to miss new videos. And now let's go. Hello, I want to tell you my story. My wife is a businesslike and respected girl. She works as the dean of the mathematics department at a very prestigious university. We lived together for almost 15 years. We have a daughter growing up who is also passionate about science like her mother. I work as an engineer and I'm often sent on business trips, including abroad. That's why I sometimes don't see my family for weeks. But that was no reason for me to cheat on my wife. I've always been faithful to my wife and I was sure that she was also faithful to me. But one winter evening, everything changed. I drive on a business trip for a few days. Already at the airport, my boss called me and said that the trip would have to be postponed until the end of the month. And he said I could go home. An idea came to my mind. I wanted to please my wife. I went into a flower shop and took a huge bouquet of white roses that my wife loved. After that, I went to her place of work. It was almost time for the end of the working day. This meant that all the students' classes had already ended. Perhaps the staff and teachers have also gone home. I was hoping to catch my wife alone, please her with flowers and take her to a restaurant. I quietly approached her office to see if there was anyone else inside besides my wife. If there's only my wife in the office, I thought I'd run in there with the word surprise. For the first few seconds, there was silence outside the door, and then I reached out to open the door. But then I heard female moans and rhythmic light tapping. Of course, I'm not a child and I understood what was going on there. But I didn't want to believe that my wife was behind the door. Maybe it wasn't her after all. Perhaps these are students who have snuck into the office and are having fun. I thought about it and did not go in so as not to get an awkward situation. I walked away from the door to the other end of the corridor, sat down on a bench and waited. After about 5 minutes, a young student came out of the office and went to the men's room. I decided to check out who this girl who was moaning was. When I entered the office, I found my wife sitting on the table with her blouse unbuttoned. When she saw me, she was surprised and almost fell off the table. I stood paralyzed with my mouth open and stared at her for a minute. "Dear, I thought you flew away on a business trip," my wife said in a frightened tone. I've never seen her so scared before. She has always been strict and self-confident. This time, she huddled in a corner like a mouse. From my look, I think she realized that I guessed what had happened. I threw the flowers on the floor and ran to the toilet after this young guy. But my wife did not understand where I had disappeared and decided that I had run outside because I heard her coming down the stairs in high heels from. When her footsteps stopped, I tried to come to my senses and figure out what to do next. Of course my fists itched, but I'm an adult and I have to pull myself together. I should have at least talked to this guy then. I shouted, "Come out," and a few seconds later, a young man came out of the last booth. He was in tears and trembling with fear. "Who are you?" the young man asked, wiping his tears with toilet paper. At that moment, my fighting spirit calmed down. I talked to him calmly and said that I had heard strange noises from the office. I asked him why he was upset. The guy was silent for a long time, but I made it clear to him that I would not tell anyone. Then he confessed everything to me. He said that they wanted to expel him because he did not pass math. His dorm mate said he had the same problem last year. There was only one way out. To pass the exam, you need to have sex with her. Only then would the math teacher calm down, he said. If he hadn't done that, he would have been expelled from the university. He would have to go back to the countryside. Plus, he had a girlfriend in this city whom he loved very much. He also said that he did not know how to look her in the eye now after what he had done. His neighbor said that there was nothing wrong with it. He just did the job and forgot, but this guy said he could never forget it. The guy wanted to add something else, but he threw up right on the toilet floor. I tried my best to think that we weren't talking about my wife. I just tried to calm this guy down and explain to him that it wasn't his fault. He seemed to come to his senses a little and went in different directions. When I returned home, I found my wife walking from corner to corner of our bedroom. "Darling, where have you been? I was so worried and I was looking for you everywhere," she asked. "You disappeared from my office so suddenly," she added. I calmly replied that I knew everything and talked to her student, who told me everything. "I will inform the rector of the university about your affairs." I added, at that moment, I saw emptiness in her eyes. She stood silent and a tear rolled down her cheeks. But I kept my promise and told my wife's superiors everything. I told what criteria my wife uses to grade her students. After that, I asked not to spread this information among the students. I just asked to take all possible measures. My wife was fired under article, so she will never find a good job. Now. She was said, and may even be imprisoned, and she will not see her daughter again. But I was glad and would not want such a monster to raise my child. It still doesn't fit in my head that I lived with a girl capable of such vile acts. At the moment, I live alone and raise my daughter. My wife was lucky and she was not imprisoned. But her life has already been ruined. I'm not thinking about a new relationship yet. I want my daughter to come of age and then it will be seen. The first story has come to an end, and let's move on to the second story. Let's go. This story happened to me a few years ago. I've been leading people all my working career. It just so happened and I wanted to achieve everything in this life. I got married right after university. The same week I received my diploma. Initially, my wife and I lived in a small apartment and barely made ends meet. We've been through a lot together. I got a job and quickly began to move up the career ladder. We gradually began to settle in and took out an apartment on a mortgage. After that, we had a baby. My salary was growing and we had a second child. My wife did not work and mostly stayed at home with the children. Our parents didn't help us, so there were difficult moments. After 6 years of living together, I came across a project. This happens once in a lifetime. A lot of responsibility and a lot of effort had to be put in. The task is to do the impossible. For the first time ever, smelled like a lot of money at. So I plunged into the project with my head. It was hell. But I lived with the thought for a year, dear. I am a breadwinner and I will get us well-being. The main thing is, please be my strong rear. A moment of real work hell when the team was tearing me apart and the bosses were pushing me. At that moment, I had 500 tasks that should have been done still yesterday. I logged into social media to turn on the music but didn't understand what was going on. My wife wrote me some nonsense. She wrote that she was going to have sex now and sent happy emojis. At that moment, I realized that this was not my profile. It was the profile of my wife's friend who was visiting us yesterday and took my phone to log into social network. The world went dark around me and I stopped hearing what was going on around me except for the throbbing blood in my ears. I silently got up, took my things and, without saying anything to anyone, ordered a taxi and went home. When I got home, the door was latched inside. I had to knock on the door for a long time. Then my wife opened the door. She was very kind and affectionate. I saw my youngest daughter in the apartment, after which I was relieved. At that moment, my boss called and started shouting something into the phone. The question was serious, so I started answering and walking around my apartment. Then I saw a man sitting on my balcony. He was lucky that I was talking to my boss and couldn't hang up screaming. It gave me a few seconds to come to my senses. After the conversation, I silently opened the front door. My wife was running in circles in horror. I silently opened the balcony and told this guy to get out of my house before I killed him. He had shoes in his hands and I kicked him out of the apartment. I didn't care about him. The main fact was my wife. My wife inaudible said that it was my fault. Then I took my work bag and went to the nearest mall. I drank a lot of beer there to somehow numb my pain. I didn't drink much in my life, so I got drunk quickly. I called my older brother and told him everything. He advised me to control myself and not to make any sudden steps. There were a lot of messages on my phone with apologies from my wife. I returned home around 10 p.m. My wife was on her knees and begged me to forgive her. I remembered all our good moments in life, how good we were together and what we achieved together. I wanted to forgive her, but I couldn't. The next day, I filed for divorce because I think that traitors cannot be forgiven. My children will understand everything when they grow up. Moreover, I do not give up on them and will help them. If you like the story, subscribe to the channel and give it a thumbs up, so as not to miss new videos. Now let's move on to the opinion of the author of the channel. The opinion of the author of the channel. According to tradition, I want to wish strength and patience to our heroes. After listening to the first story, I was stunned by your wife's action. Although this is not surprising, many girls are attracted to crazy things. All the girls are very depraved. They just hide it. Your wife is lucky she didn't go to jail, but I think she'll get what she deserves. You made the right decision. Live for your daughter and move forward. In the second situation, I feel very sorry for our hero. Unfortunately, there are many such situations. When a man tries and works hard for the sake of his family, but girls don't appreciate it. But the main thing is not to bother and move forward. I think you'll find a worthy replacement for yourself. If you have watched to the end, I want to say thank you very much. I love you all. Thank you for joining me on this exciting journey of love, betrayal, and redemption. I appreciate your support and encourage you to subscribe, like, and share this story. Your participation and feedback are invaluable for shaping our content and promoting mutual understanding and community growth. Until we meet again.